what you take out in the field does matter. And you can get away without a lot of the stuff. But at the same time, eventually you're going to want to do it. You're probably going to want to have it, especially if you want to set yourself up for best case scenarios and best success when you're out hunting. So my hunting kit, or let's just go over the things you need. So hunting kit, camouflage shirt and a face cover of some sort at a bare minimum, right? You're going to want to have something that you can cover your face with. A lot of people just use the buffs. So it's like a big bit of material, looks like a tube of material where you can pull it up your nose. And if you're wearing a hat, essentially all it's showing is just your eyes. So you've got that and a camouflage shirt on, maybe just some work pants or green pants of some sort, green or beige, like blend into the natural elements. But ideally, if you can, walk out for good camo from word go. This is like a buy once, cry once situation once again. Buy your camo, buy your shirt and pants that are matching if you can. Buy a hat and the face guards and everything that are all the exact same if you can. Actually, Brackenwear do have a discount through me, so you can use that as BAB15. That will get you $15 off of Brackenwear if that's something you want to check out. And so with that, essentially they have a full kit where you can get jacket, pants, gloves, everything. I've got the full kit of those and it's good stuff. But yeah, so going back to it. So yeah, camouflage shirt and a face guard at a minimum, because the other thing you can do if you don't want to have a face guard is wear face paint or something like that. Or essentially all we're trying to do is, if you can think about, if you see a face in the wild, you're going to understand it's a face, right? And deer are similar versus if you just see eyes. Like if your face is broken up, and you'll see a lot of Americans do it with just like face paint of some sort, like army face paint, where it just looks like their face is sticks and it's just breaking up the shape of their face. It at least pulls away the attention from it being like, that's a round face that's looking right at me right now. And so that's all we're trying to do. Pants, shirt, hat of some sort, jacket and gloves for the colder seasons, and then hiking boots of some sort. Now, I've always been a big fan of volleys because I don't wear shoes very often. I work from home. My office, we're in my office right now. And essentially, I'm always barefoot apart from when I go to the gym in the morning. So for me, wearing shoes is not necessarily comfortable. Wearing shoes with a lot of support in them, it actually makes my knees sore. It makes my shin sore. It makes for worse wear afterwards. So I've always been very into flat sole shoes for the last kind of 10, 15 years or so. Within saying that though, what you need to do is figure out what works best for you. I now have a pair of hiking boots. I've got some Solomons and I wear them a lot. I do still jump in between both of them though. I'll chop and change between, depending on what country I'm in and what I'm having to hike, as to which shoes I'll go in. And also what I'll often do is start my hunt in my Solomons. And if they get too sore, if my feet get too sore or my knees or anything get too sore, then I'll switch back to what I know, which is the volleys, and keep going that way. The biggest thing we're looking for in a hiking boot is figuring out ankle support. And then obviously when you're stepping on, the big aha moment for me was when I stood on a sharp tree root and it went straight through my boot. It went straight through my volley and into my toes, and I sliced my toe open. I was just lucky that it wasn't worse than what it was. But then within saying that, I've also done the exact same thing with my Solomons with the thick base on them. I actually put something straight through the base of my foot, through the base of the shoe. It was just lucky enough that I actually realized what was happening and was able to stop it once I felt like the small prick. And so luckily didn't get anything through my foot at that point in time. You could definitely, I guess, argue that the Solomons did a better job of protecting the foot in that case. And so it's just about, once again, protection for your feet, making sure that you're in a comfortable position, that you are going to be able to walk for hours on end. I took my brother-in-law out hunting for his first week of hunting, and he wore his steel cap boots that he wears to work every single day. And within the first day, they had absolutely buried him. His feet were ripped to shreds and he was not in a great place with his feet. We had to wrap them up and stuff. And he managed it. Like, he did well throughout the week. But the concept was there, just because they're comfortable for you throughout the day, a steel cap boot is not recommended for up in the hills. They're not going to be as supportive as what you think. So get yourself a proper hiking boot if you can, of some sort, and make sure it's suited to you as much as possible. Wear them in before you go in for your first hunt, meaning wear them around the house, wear them to work, go for a few big walks in them, just to make sure that you've softened them and position them into your foot, because otherwise you'll end up with very sore legs on the very first day of your hunt, where you're trying to break these boots in, essentially. Okay, so that's your kit in regards to what you're going to be wearing. Other things to think about: you're going to need binoculars and a rangefinder. The rangefinder is going to be the thing, it's like a laser where you essentially can see how far away distances are. Now, typically with your sight, you're either going to have either a 1-pin sight a 3-pin sight or a 5-pin sight. It's just the way they tend to be made. There are different variations, but that's like the bare basis of them. And sometimes if you're on a 1-pin sight, for instance, you're going to have a slidable sight, which means you can set the distance. Now, if you don't know what the distance is, how can you set the distance? And that's where a rangefinder comes in handy. A lot of the stuff that we do within bow hunting, like ideally we're shooting under 30 meters, under 20 meters if possible. But you don't know, once again, those distances. And sometimes if you're shooting across dead ground, which is, for instance, if there's a creek in between me and the animal, it can look further or it can look closer. And so having that rangefinder, essentially, it just gives you like 100% guarantee this animal is at 22 meters right now, set my sight and shoot the bow. Okay. Or if you've already got your set pins, it's at 22 meters. I know I can use my 20 pin. I might have to aim a little bit high if needed because of the 2 meter difference. And let's go for it. So binoculars are really handy because when we go out, what you'll find is that a lot of the time you'll spend so much time glassing and looking at things. Glassing meaning using your binoculars to search around and see what's about. And you're going to look at a log or a rock and be like, that's a pig or that's a deer. And then you look at it and you're like, oh no, it's just a rock or it's just a log. I'm glad I have my binos to be able to check that whole distance rather than trying to do a complete random stalk on this rock, for instance. So binoculars are really helpful. They're actually probably the tool that I use the most when I'm out bow hunting is my binoculars. They sit on my chest. I've got a bino harness that has my binoculars here and my rangefinder right here. And essentially I'll walk, I'll stop, I'll glass. I'll walk, I'll stop, I'll glass. I'll see something over here, I'll glass. Okay, so I'm checking out everything. Even when I see an animal, I'm looking at it through the binoculars to make sure, like just to observe the animal more, just to find out more about the animals, and watching them from afar is really cool. And you start to learn a lot about them, but also you can be the difference between seeing, okay, is it a splacker deer, meaning like a 1st-year male deer, or is it a doe or a hind? So a female deer that I can shoot. And if you're not going to shoot the young boys in particular, then you're like, okay, well, that's a deer that I can't hunt because it's a spiker. I'm going to leave it be where it is and I'll keep looking for the other deer. As an example, right? So binoculars and rangefinder and then some form of bino harness. The other thing that gets used a lot by bow hunters, especially whilst you're getting used to wind, is a wind checker. And so usually this is just like a little puffer of some sort, like essentially it's a little plastic bottle with a little spout on it where you can give it a little squirt and it will puff chalk or powder of some sort, corn, flour, depending on what you want to use. People use ash, like burn, like the coal or ash from a fire. Have that really broken up, the fine like soot stuff, spray that out because that's something that animals are used to smelling compared to a talcum powder where an animal will freak out when it smells that. If it walks across that, it will stop and you'll see it be stunned by there's something here. I don't know what the heck it is, but it's not natural to me. So paying attention to things like that does also matter. But yeah, a wind checker in general, as a concept, the winds do change a lot. And so yes, you might have an easterly, for instance, which is constantly blowing in your face. But what you'll find is like when it dies down and it picks up and it dies down and does that stuff, it can swirl and it can spin and it can go in different directions and stuff. So in particular, if you're trying to get really close to an animal, the other thing is as you jump into different terrains, as you go into a creek, for instance, if you're staying on the edges, typically your wind is going to pull down into the creek at different times of the day when you've got your thermals happening. So as the sun comes on to you, your smell is going to raise up the mountain versus in the afternoon, as it starts to drop and the sun comes off of you, your smell will drop down the mountain. So there's different things that will happen at different times of the day. And that's why it's really helpful to have this little puffer as you get around, because it gives you a chance to check the wind and see what's happening, especially when you're on a stalk. Give it a quick puff and you're like, oh, hold up, it's doing things I don't want it to be doing right now. I'll go this way instead. Now, ideally, you get to a stage where you're feeling the wind as you're walking and you're like, yep, cool. It's on the front of my face. We're good. We're in a good position here. And as you get closer, then you might check it a few times. Some people really rely on their wind checkers a lot, but you don't necessarily always have to once you learn the wind a little bit. The biggest thing is that it's not a repeatable process. The wind will change drastically on you and you'll see it blow a lot of stalks for you if you don't pay enough attention to it. Even if you do pay enough attention to it, you're still going to blow some stalks on the wind, especially when it's swirling. Okay, in regards to a backpack, I actually used just like a Reebok bag for many years. It was like a tactical bag, like it was good, but it wasn't necessarily like an amazing hiking pack or something like that. So if you're going out and buying your very first pack, preferably we want to have something with a waistband on it where it's going to take a lot of the load around the waist rather than it all being on your shoulders, especially if you're packing out an animal what you'll find is if that weight is on your shoulders, you will burn your shoulders out very quickly from carrying a heavy pack. Okay, so if you've got something that can have a waistband clip and or a frame on the back of it just to help with that loading, that's going to help out a lot. Inside of your pack, you're probably going to want to have a first aid kit of some degree. I don't have it written down as to which number it was. It was in the 130s, but did an episode all about wilderness first aid. So I will chuck that into the show notes as well, because that's important to understand. Inside of the pack, you'll also want a knife and some form of sharpener, be that a steel or a knife sharpener and or a broadhead sharpener. I've got a little game. What is it called? A work sharp it's a little field tactical sharpener. Essentially, it's got different grits on the, like a sanding stone, essentially. It's got a leather strop, and it's got also kind of what acts as like a steel, as a ceramic rod that you can use to help sharpen your knives up or sharpen your broadheads up with. So some form of sharpener and or steel, and a knife. Obviously, a sharp knife is ideal. So a knife that you're going to be using for cutting up an animal, a camelback or water bottle, and then some form of game bags, ideally for taking your meat out if you're going meat hunting in particular. Just trying to think if there's anything else in regards to the hunting kit. I think that's about it. Obviously, there'll be little other things that you might want to take with you, the little niceties that you might take. For instance, I'll often take a dog and gun coffee out with my jet boil and have a coffee on the side of the mountain as well. So it's about figuring out what you want, and you'll develop these things. Some toilet paper. I met some people that need to poo every time you go for a walk versus others that don't at all. Yeah. Plastic bags and or gloves. Maybe some people are a bit, I guess, just ultra protective of if you've got a cut or something like that and you're trying to butcher meat, then you should definitely probably have some form of gloves to make sure that you're not contaminating either yourself or the meat. But yeah, there's different things that you can have that are niceties, but I guess that's like a bare basic kit as regards to the things you'd want. So backpack, first aid kit, knife, camelback or water, game bags, sharpener or steel. The other thing that I didn't put in there is either like a personal location beaker and or a walkie-talkie of some sort, so you can get in contact with people if you need to.